I'd like to tell you a secret. On my very first day ever teaching as a little baby grad student, it was a public speaking class, and I did what I was told to do. I asked each of my students to come up to the front of the room and introduce themselves. Who are you? Where are you from? What are you studying? Pretty basic. And one of my first volunteers gets up to the front of the class, gives his name, and promptly faints and collapses into a heap on the floor. Now, I'm not ashamed to say that even with a few years of teaching under my belt, I would find this situation unnerving. As a little baby grad student on her very first day teaching ever, I was petrified. I am happy to report that the student did recover, both that day and after a lot of hard work and many office hour visits. He did pretty well in the class. Every semester, I think of that little student, and I wish that he could take my class now rather than then. Because my approach to speech anxiety has matured, and I think I could be a lot more help to him. And I'm hoping, through today, I can be of some help to you too. The 2014 Chapman University poll of top American phobias lists public speaking as the number one. Approximately 1 in 4 Americans finds public speaking the most terrifying, death-potentially inducing thing they can think of. Put that in context, death did not even make the top 10 of the poll. To quote the ever-funny Jerry Seinfeld, this means that if given the choice, more of us would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. I don't know about you, but that's a little weird. So why so nervous? What about public speaking makes us so upset? Before this event, I watched as you walked in, you greeted each other, lots of people asked if that seat was vacant. You talked to one another, and no one passed out. So the process of pushing air from our diaphragm through our vocal bands and creating symbolic sounds of speech does not seem to be all that scary. So what is? I ask you, TEDx audience, what about public speaking has us shaking in our boots? Judgment. Absolutely. It's not the speech you're afraid of, it's the audience. And let me just go ahead and say, from where I'm standing, you guys are terrifying. So how do we as speakers get over it? How do we as speakers abandon those nerves and create the engaging, confident delivery that we need? To that in a moment. Instead, I want you to think about this idea of judgment. We worry about what people are going to say about what we say, and we worry about how we're going to say it. Who would like some good news on that front? Yeah, your audience isn't listening to you. Studies show this, and I can prove it. I am speaking on a topic that, by your own admission, is an issue that directly affects most of you. And I'm standing on a stage where there is very little to focus on, but me. And yet, how many of us are thinking about what we're going to have for dinner tonight? Or how this one light makes my head kind of glow funny? Or all the things you need to get done before your kid's sports ball practice or game tonight? Yeah, most of us. Your brain is so busy focusing on all the internal and external noise going on in your brain, you're not listening to me. Which, as a speaker, I should tell you, I find very freeing and emboldening. But it doesn't do much for our message communication. So, is there a happy medium? Is there a place where I, as a speaker, can feel confident and my audience actually pay attention to me? I would like to argue that there is. And in doing that, I'm going to argue something rather bold. We should abandon the public speech and embrace public storytelling. Storytelling does a few things automatically when we think of speeches as stories rather than speeches. First, it gives us an inherent organizational pattern. All good stories have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a logical progression that runs through them. Adopting storytelling also gives the speaker credibility and power more so than the audience. If this is your expertise, your story, you are the expert in the room. You're no longer the performance being judged. And finally, storytelling is inherently conversational. Dr. Michael Motley of the University of California introduced the new speaking paradigm of conversational speech in the late 90s and 2000s. His argument was that we should abandon formal speaking and instead conceptualize speech and speeches as a conversation between the speaker and the audience. And Motley was on to some good ideas. But I would like to argue to take that paradigm shift one step farther. And when we adopt storytelling as how we conceptualize speaking, then we not only gain the conversational style, but we gain the organizational patterns and the credibility to the speaker and away from the audience as well. Humans are natural storytellers. For millennia, it is how we pass down our histories, our cultures, our policies and philosophies of government. It's how we explained how we understood the world around us. Our audiences are hardwired to listen and remember stories. We are hardwired to deliver information through stories. It's an instinctual, natural communication method for sharing information. And unlike most things that are natural and potentially good for us, there is no kale involved. A perk for me. So how do we make this paradigm work for us? I've talked to you about the beauty of storytelling over speeches and even conversations, but how do you actually make it work for you? Let's talk about that. So I want you to think forward to your next speaking event. Can you tell me a story, a coherent story, where you guide me from your central idea, you give it context, and you offer me resolution? Can you do that about your topic now? If so, you're golden. Practice that out loud a few times, and you're good to go. But what if your story has holes in it? Sounds like you need to go do some more research. You need to give your idea context and information. You have to become the expert that has that story to tell. Once that's done, then you can step out and tell your story to the world with the confidence and ease of an expert. Today, I did not give you a speech. This is not a speech. It's not even a conversation. Today, I told you a story. My story. My understanding and my passion. After today, I hope that none of you ever give another speech. But please share your stories with the world. Thank you.